Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Ian Kavat. Has the world's post-war era drawn to a close? And is the transition to a pre-war underway? According to Asia Society's Takako Hikotani, this may be the way that Tokyo is viewing things. The end of World War II in 1945 was exactly 77 years from 1868's overthrow of the last shogun, Yoshinobu Tokugawa, and the start of a period to the west called the Meiji Restoration. It was also the previous pre-war phase leading into the Second World War. And exactly another 77 years from that war's end in 1945 was Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, the post-war era. But if we are entering a new pre-war era, this time the regional aggressor is not Japan, but its neighbours China, North Korea, and of course, Russia. How is Japan seeking to maintain peace by preparing for this pre-war? Can Tokyo work within the limitations of its pacifist constitution, and to what extent does its militarist past haunt any security shift today? With us to discuss this are Masatoshi Murakami, Kogakkan University Department of Contemporary Society Associate Professor, and Liou To-hai, National Chengchi University College of International Affairs Adjunct Distinguished Professor. A very warm welcome to both of you on the show today. The Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force is set to undergo its largest organizational restructuring in history, creating a new uniformed fleet surface force by 2026 for command and oversight. It's part of the Defense Ministry's $59.1 billion or 8.5 trillion yen budget request for 2025, its largest yet. Professor, let me come to you first. How significant is this change for Japan's self-defense force, and is it to align better with the US forces in Japan?
Yeah, this is part of another restructuring, and that is Japan is going to set up the Joint Operations Command, JJOC, and the JJOC will increase Japanese joint operation capabilities and facilitate greater interoperability with US forces.
Okay, yeah. And if you could go into a little bit more detail, we understand that, for example, the naming is different. So the new Fleet Surface Force, it removes the name of escort. Is there significance to that?
Yeah, so the new name is the symbolic of the restructuring of the maritime self-defense forces. But for now, maritime self-defense forces is still a very strong de facto Japanese Navy. But we are going to increase its capability to facilitate greater interoperability with the US counterparts.
Now, in early September, the Liberal Democratic Party decided to seek to specifically mention the name of the Self-Defense Forces, or SDF, in the Japanese constitution. To tackle the debate over the constitutionality of SDF, the LDP party proposed to keep the wording of war-renouncing Article 9, but add a new section to explain the self-defense force. Now, under Article 9, Japan forever renounces war, declaring that land, sea and air forces, as well as other war potential, will never be maintained. The SDF is treated in Japan as a self-defense organization. Now, Japan sets a high hurdle for any constitutional revision. Any amendment proposal needs to be approved by a 2/3 majority in both houses of parliament before it can be put to national referendum. Professor Liou, let me come to you first. Why is there a debate over whether the self-defense force is constitutional?
Yes. You know, Japan has been emphasized the pacifist constitution for a long time. And most Japanese people also don't want to have a war again. Right? So in that case, it's not easy to remove the Article 9 right away.
But there's not talk about removing Article 9, is there?
Yeah, so that is why, they keep the Article 9, so that means we can analyze this from the different angles. When we talk about defense policy or deterrence, two components can be identified. One is intention, the other one is capabilities. So in terms of intention, maintaining the Article 9 will make Japanese people feel comfortable. And of course, get the enough support from the dads as well as people. On the other hand, when it comes to the capabilities, Japan needs to have strong military capabilities in order to deal with or address the emerging security threats from Russia, China, and North Korea.
Yeah, absolutely, because I believe under the Constitution, perhaps I'll address this to Professor, Japan is permitted to, possess the minimum required for self-defense capability. And as Professor Liou just mentioned, if that threat to the security increases, well, so does Japan's capabilities.
Yeah, so security environment around Japan is increasing, challenging. So as Professor Liou said, we have 3 potential adversaries, including Russia, China, and North Korea. So a lot of policymakers and experts in Tokyo want to revise the Article 9 of the Constitution. And we just want to have the regular setting that is in every country. The Constitution articulates that the nation possesses the military, and the military is controlled and governed by the head of the government. But we are lacking that kind of article at the Japanese Constitution. So we want to have the regular setting at the Constitution.
In your view, though, does there need to be an amendment to Article 9 when it says that a minimum capability essentially for self-defense?
Yeah.
So if that threat does increase, does it not mean that the self-defense force needs to get more capability? So where is the contradiction there?
Yeah, I agree with you. So the security environment around Japan is increasing, changing. So therefore, we like to revise our constitution. So our action is very passive one. Yeah.
And what is the likelihood of, that parliament, the 2/3 majority, passing that, do you think?
Yeah, so when we look at the public survey, so this April, the Yomiuri Shimbun, one of the largest newspapers in Japan, their public survey shows that about the half of the majority of the Japanese public agree with the revising the constitution. So I think the public attitude is rapidly changing due to, again, the sitting around Japan is changing.
Yeah, and Professor Liou, you mentioned that, the public needs to have Article 9 for its own sense of security. Can you tell us some of the things that prevents the SDF from possessing? What kind of more offensive weaponry do you know, or offensive,
It
posture?
depends on our definition. So that's why I mentioned about the intention and the capabilities. So in terms of the intention, we just mentioned about maintaining the Article 9. That shows Japan still maintain the defense in this regard. On the other hand, Japan increased its military capabilities. That's something could be regarded as offense.
Right. Professor, because I understand that, for example, SDF cannot have ICBMs, it cannot have long-range strategic bombers or attack sort of aircraft carriers. So there is a restraint on what the self-defense forces can do there. How about the issue of counter-strike? Again, the definition of that is that Japan is struck first before it then counters. Is that correct?
Yeah, so Prime Minister Kishida, he decided that Japan is going to possess the counter capabilities, counter-strike capabilities, and which is the middle-range missiles. And we are not going to possess the preemptive capabilities. We are very reactive one and passive one. So if China attacks our territories, including Okinawa or other islands of the Japanese archipelago, so we are going to facilitate the counter-strike capabilities.
Right.
Due to, we want to increase our deterrence.
Now, in June 2022, China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi visited South Pacific Island nations and East Timor with a view to signing a regional security pact. A security agreement was later only signed with the Solomon Islands, with details of a secret naval base leaked. Western nations suspect that Beijing's ultimate goal is to establish military bases in the region. Some experts believe that China's aims to establish bases across the US's second and third island chains in the South Pacific to effectively break through the US's containment chains. Now, Nikkei Asia reports that China's penetration into the South Pacific evoked unsettling memories, as it appears to follow a pattern similar to Japan's before World War II. In the 1920s, Japan established strategic military outposts in the South Pacific, attempting to create an unsinkable aircraft carrier. Professor, let me come to you. Could you analyze these similarities or differences between what China is doing now and what Japan did before World War II?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to report to the moderator and viewers that Japan has just hosted the Pacific Island Leaders Meeting this July, and we welcomed a lot of prime ministers and presidents of the Pacific Island nations to Tokyo. And we discussed the common issues, including climate change. I believe a lot of leaders of the Pacific Island nations are very supportive of the Japanese way, and we are very good mutual friendship right now.
Right, so that's now, but if you could help us to do that comparison in terms of the advance.
Okay. Yeah, so for instance, for instance, there is an island called Palau, and Japan started to rule Palau from 1919, and that was a very totally legal one, because as a result of the Versailles Treaty, just after the World War I, we started to govern these islands in the Pacific Islands. So I think there are much differences between Japan and China. I mean, so our governance in that area was legal, and we have a very good relationship right now with Pacific Islands. Yeah.
Okay, Professor Liou, given that there are some similarities between, pre-World War II Japan and China now, how important do you think it is that we have Tokyo's perspective on China's strategy in this great power rivalry that we have today with the US?
I think the primary similarity is the strategic location of South Pacific Island states, because they are close to the United States. They are also what's called the third island chains. Yeah. So in that case, it's very important for the US. So then we also can say both Japan in the past and the current China targeting at the United States. So that is why South Pacific Islands are important. But things are different. For China at this moment, Chinese primarily focus on first island chain and primarily. So that is why we have seen in South China Sea, China-Philippines, they had this kind of confrontation and cross-strait crisis is there. The reason why China wants to penetrate it into the South Pacific Island actually is a kind of testing water and give a warning signal to the United States. You can involve in first island chain, like Philippines case or Taiwan's case. I can also penetrate it in your adjacent strategic location to give you uncomfortable feelings.
Right, yeah. Professor, you want to add to that?
Yeah, so I agree with Professor Liou. So Pacific Island has a very strategic importance to great power competition. And I'm paying attention to New Caledonia, just next to Australia. And because New Caledonia is a part of the French territory, and it's reported that, I have no concrete evidence, but it's reported that China is supporting the independence group in that island. And so that's why Japan has just setting up our new office in New Caledonia. So there is a lot of competition strategically, I think.
China often likes to recall Japan's World War II past. It likes to perhaps, stoke some distrust and sow fear about Tokyo's defense build-up. Let me quote from you what the Global Times said recently of the overhaul of the maritime force. Said, "What is the difference between such a fleet surface force and the combined fleet of the Imperial Japanese Navy? Japan aims to be capable of executing preemptive attacks and conducting amphibious landing operations to invade other countries' territories once again." How effective do you think this narrative is across the region?
Yeah, in my view, the Chinese narrative is not effective right now. And facts proven that. So a lot of Asian countries, Indo-Pacific countries, wants to enhance their cooperation with Japan, especially military-wise. For instance, South Korea has just improved their relationship with Japan, and we have trilateral cooperation among the U.S., Japan, and South Korea. And in addition, the Philippines wants to enhance their cooperation with Japan as well. And Japan, the Philippines has just signed our mutual treaty about the military cooperation, defense cooperation, and it's reported that the Philippines is going to welcome our Japanese self-defense forces rotation deployment in their territory. So I think the facts are going to say their intention.
Yeah. And do you think there's also, though, for the Japanese approach, not just kind of the kinetic or the defense approach, but also this is from the defense white paper, sort of efforts to build dialogue and sort of even mutual trust with China itself, and so that they have highlighted even the importance of defense cooperation with China?
Actually, the defense cooperation between Japan and China is limited, but we have implemented a lot of dialogues with China as well, with Beijing. So we'd like to avoid miscommunication, or our lack of communication will lead to the direct conflict between Japan and China on the East China Sea, for instance. So we have some communication tools, and we'd like to keep the line of communication open with each other. Yeah.
Right, okay. Now, following Russia's war of aggression, no statesman has been more forceful than Fumio Kishida in linking the two theatres of the Euro-Atlantic and Indo-Pacific. Recently, Asia Society's Takako Hikotani, speaking on the FT Rachman Review Programme, suggested that some people in Japan might view the current era as transitioning from post-war, 1945, to 2022, to a pre-war phase. However, this time the aggressor is not Japan, and the US is not Japan's adversary, it is its partner. Professor Liou, according to Japan, who would you say is the biggest aggressor in the region?
I think we need to know current administration of Japan, Kishida, he is facing a different environment vis-a-vis his predecessor, Shinzo Abe. So that's why they have different approaches to dealing with the crisis. When it comes to the Kishida, under Biden administration wants to mold a new Cold War structure in order to identify the confrontation between democratic camps and authoritarian regimes like China and Russia, plus North Korea. So in that case, US actually want to have stronger partners in Indo-Pacific. So in that case, that provided a premier chance for Kishida to transform Japan. It's very important. For the United States, US also needs Japan to serve as a sort of the strategic OEM. The first island chain, it's up to Japan to increase its military capability to confront China. Even the second island chain, okay. But the third island chain, Japan can join the AUKUS through the Peter II. That means Japan can join military technology explorations, such as underwater drone, electronic warfare, and hypersonic and counter-hypersonic capabilities, such as.
Right. Professor Murakami, I'd like to hear your view, obviously, on who you think is the aggressor. I mean, obviously, we know that there are missiles coming from North Korea, but with China, it's, you know, the Senkaku Islands, but also even perhaps the unresolved, this is according to China, unresolved Okinawa. Who is the biggest aggressor?
Yes, from the Japanese perspective, China is the biggest challenge to the Japanese security. And at the same time, Russia and North Korea, they are presenting the very challenging situation at the same time. So for Japan, China, Russia, and North Korea, three countries are potential adversaries. And in addition, mutual cooperation among three countries, three parties are increasing, even after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. For instance, China and Russia jointly operating their naval ships and fighter jets around the Japanese archipelago after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So that's a very, very serious sign to the Japanese perspective.
Yeah, and what I really want to know from you is, you know, how pervasive is this thinking about the world entering a pre-war phase?
Yeah, see, the turning point was the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So after that event, Japan is increasingly support Ukraine, and we also increasing our cooperation with NATO. And Japan and NATO had a very good cooperation with each other, and it's reported that NATO has an idea they are going to open the branch in Tokyo. And that's a very strategic concept because Japan and NATO are very far away from each other, but we have shared our strategic ambitions, strategic the setting. So in addition, we are cooperating with the AUKUS nations as well.
Right, and Professor Liou, you know, just to get an insight into Japan's thinking, again, the Defense White Paper, it talks about the international community entering a new era of crisis, saying that it's now facing the greatest trial since World War II. The existing order is being seriously challenged. I think it said that before in previous defense papers. Japan finds itself in the most severe and complex security environment of the post-war era. You know, for you, how does this pre-war concept act as a framework for when we look at what's happening, the changes in Japan?
Yes, as I said, U.S. President Biden emphasized fierce competition between the United States and China. And also, as I said, he wants to see the new Cold War restructuring emerged so U.S. can consolidate its leadership. So this kind of, as a result, you know, you have already seen the Russia's intrusion of Ukraine. So that forced Japan has to address this new crisis. That is why Kishida tend to emphasize the strategic collaboration through the two theaters. In addition to Indo-Pacific, the other side is the Europe. So that's why he visited Ukraine immediately after the intrusion of Russia. And now he also emphasized the strategic collaboration with the NATO. So he became the first prime minister visiting the NATO summit.
Professor Murakami, the Nishi Nippon Shimbun reported that in the recent Keen Edge exercises, that's US-Japan-led military exercises, the SDF did actually name China as the hypothetical enemy. However, I understand that this hypothetical naming of an enemy was considered taboo for many years after, many decades following World War II. So if this is no longer taboo, you know, what does that say about the security environment and how Japan is viewing it?
Yeah, so I don't have a concrete evidence to that report, but surely our mindset has changed a lot. So for, during the Cold War time, so Russia was the main target, main concern to the Japanese security, but now we have China. And aggressive China is the most challenging situation to the Japanese security. So yeah, it totally changed.
Professor Liou, you mentioned Joe Biden, and also, of course, we need to talk about Donald Trump, who has a chance at the presidency. You know, how concerned is the region, and also Japan, with a possible return of Donald Trump? You know, how would Japan, do you think, be able to respond to a request from a possible Trump president to raise spending? It's already doubled spending from 1% to 2% of its GDP. That is the plan over the next sort of few years. How about if it was asked to raise that to 3 or even 5% of GDP?
Yeah, that's inevitable if Donald Trump becomes the next U.S. president. That's why I mentioned about Abe and Kishida. They have different approach to the United States because different U.S. president. You know, Donald Trump, he wants to show U.S. is a protectionist. U.S. is a great leader. You just follow me. Okay? I told you how to do. You just do it. But the thing is, this kind of a security burden you cannot avoid because the United States wants its allies to increase their defense budget. So that's inevitable. And also, you need to import more American products.
Right. Professor Murakami, so how much more percentage of GDP do you think Japan can spend on defense without upsetting that balance?
Yeah, so right now, so the Japanese LDP, which is a Japanese ruling party, is carrying out the presidency election. And most of the candidates agree with the increasing of the military budget. So the direction will not change after the new prime minister assigned.
We'll have to end it there. Thank you so much, Professor Murakami and Professor Liou, for joining Taiwan Talks today. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching the show today. Stay safe and see you next time.